There's a war happening inside you right now. A war between who you think you are and everything you refuse to see about yourself. A silent battle between the part of you that strives, achieves, conquers, and the part that hides, sabotages, collapses. Carl Jung named these forces. He saw them clearly not as abstract concepts, but as living, breathing energies woven into the very fabric of the human psyche. On one side stands the hero, the part of you that rises, that fights, that believes it can overcome anything, if only it's strong enough, disciplined enough, relentless enough. The hero is the one that tells you, push harder, prove yourself, keep going. Your worth is measured by what you conquer. And on the other side, lurking in the dark, watching from the edges of your consciousness, is the shadow, the part of you that you don't want to see, the flaws, the rage, the jealousy, the selfishness, the fears, the wounds. The hero is everything you show the world. The shadow is everything you hide. But here's the truth Jung warned us about, a truth that most people will never face. If the hero rises without the shadow being acknowledged, it eventually becomes the shadow. Let's step back. What is the hero really? At first glance, it seems noble. It's the part of you that strives for greatness. It's the voice that says, I won't be like them. I won't fail. I'll overcome my pain. I'll prove I'm enough. It fuels your work ethic. It drives your ambition. It gets you through heartbreak, failure, rejection, and loss. The hero refuses to be a victim. It says, I will rise. But beneath that determination is fear. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of being unworthy. Fear of being seen as weak, broken, or insignificant. The hero is born not from wholeness, but from a wound that says, I am not enough as I am. I must achieve something. I must prove something. I must conquer something to deserve love. And this is where the shadow is born, because everything that doesn't fit the hero's image of strength gets shoved underground. Your fear? Bury it. Your grief? Deny it. Your anger? Suppress it. Your vulnerability? Hide it. The hero builds itself by splitting the psyche in two. This is me, the strong, the capable, the admirable. This is not me, the weak, the needy, the broken. But what happens to everything the hero refuses to face? It doesn't disappear. It sinks. It gathers in the unconscious. It festers. It waits. And from there, it starts to run your life in ways you can't see. You tell yourself you're disciplined, but beneath it is shame. The fear that if you don't hustle, you'll be worthless. You tell yourself you're independent, but beneath it is abandonment. A refusal to trust anyone, because trusting once led to pain. You tell yourself you're calm and composed, but beneath it is suppressed rage. Anger that has nowhere to go but sideways, into passive aggression, burnout, or quiet self-sabotage. This is the hero's great lie, that you can outrun your shadow. That if you just achieve enough, you'll finally feel whole. But the psyche doesn't work that way. What you refuse to face doesn't vanish. It controls you. From the dark. This is why people burn out. This is why high achievers collapse into depression they never saw coming. This is why you can reach every external milestone and still feel hollow inside. Because the hero wins the battle, but loses the war. The hero conquers the mountain and finds the summit empty. It looks out across the landscape of its victories and realizes, none of this filled the void, none of this healed the wound, because the real mountain was never out there. It was in here, inside the shadow. Jung's warning was clear. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. But what happens when it's not just the parents' unlived life, but your own? The parts of yourself you abandoned to be the hero, the feelings you rejected to be admired, the dreams you left behind to be responsible. Every time you said, I can't feel this, I can't want this, I can't be this, you pushed a piece of yourself into the shadow. And the shadow never forgets. It waits. It shows up in your triggers, in the sudden explosion of anger, in the self-sabotage that ruins what you worked so hard to build, in the depression that descends without warning, in the relationships that crumble over and over for reasons you can't explain. It shows up in projection, when you blame others for embodying the very traits you refuse to accept in yourself. You judge the lazy because you fear your own exhaustion. You resent the selfish because you've denied your own needs for too long. You hate the arrogant because you secretly buried your own longing to feel powerful. This is how the shadow runs your life. Quietly, invisibly, powerfully. But here's the truth that most never realize. The shadow is not your enemy. It is not evil. It is not broken. It is the parts of you waiting to come home. Your anger holds your boundaries. Your grief holds your depth. Your fear holds your intuition. Your selfishness holds your right to rest, to say no, to protect your energy. Your jealousy holds your desire, your longing to be fully seen, fully loved, fully chosen. The shadow isn't what's wrong with you. It's what's missing from you. Jung didn't teach that we must destroy the shadow. He taught that we must integrate it, that the hero must descend, must kneel, must face the darkness inside, not to conquer it, but to reclaim it, because when the hero meets the shadow, something extraordinary happens. The drive for achievement stops being about proving your worth, and starts being about expressing your wholeness. Your ambition stops coming from fear, and starts flowing from authenticity. You stop running from yourself, and start returning to yourself. This is not the death of the hero. It's the hero's initiation. It's transformation, from an image of perfection to an embodiment of truth. Not flawless, not untouchable, not above pain, but whole, real, complete. This is the journey Jung laid before us. A journey not of endless striving, but of integration, of becoming, finally, the self you were always meant to be. So the hero rises, fueled by purpose, driven by discipline, obsessed with overcoming. It marches forward, one goal after another, believing, if I just succeed enough, if I just win enough battles, this hollow ache inside me will disappear. But it never does, because the hero's victories are external, and the wound is internal. No promotion silences the voice that says, you're not enough. No achievement soothes the gnawing tension that lives beneath the surface. No trophy fixes the fracture inside the psyche. Why? Because the hero was never designed to heal you. The hero was designed to protect you. Think back. Where did the hero first appear in your life? For most, it's childhood. The moment you realize the world isn't safe. That love might be conditional. That being vulnerable might lead to rejection. That being seen as weak could invite pain. So the hero stepped forward. A shield. A sword. A strategy. It whispered, if I become strong, I won't get hurt. If I achieve enough, they'll have to love me. If I never show weakness, I'll never be abandoned again. And so began the climb. Grades, success, approval, achievements, the constant, exhausting performance of being better. But what happens to everything the hero deems unworthy of the mission? The sadness, the loneliness, the resentment, the fear? It gets exiled, buried, pushed into the shadow. The shadow becomes a vault, a hidden chamber within the psyche, where every rejected piece of yourself is locked away. But the unconscious has a law. What you suppress, you must experience indirectly. The shadow cannot be destroyed. It can only be denied until it returns. And it always returns. In self-sabotage, in anxiety you can't explain, in depression that descends out of nowhere, in burnout so deep you can barely get out of bed, or worse, in patterns, the same fights, the same heartbreak, the same mistakes, over and over and over. Why? Because the shadow isn't punishing you. It's trying to get your attention. This is the part no one wants to face. The hero thinks the battle is out there, but the real battle is in here, inside the unconscious, against yourself, against the parts you disowned to survive. And until you face it, truly face it, you will stay locked in the cycle, chasing, running, burning out, collapsing, wondering why no amount of success ever feels like enough. Here's the most brutal truth of the psyche. When the hero refuses to face the shadow, the hero becomes the shadow. The relentless pursuit of success becomes obsession. Ambition mutates into addiction. Discipline turns into rigidity, cruelty, self-punishment. The hero begins to bully the self it was meant to protect. It stops being the savior and starts being the prison guard. Look around. You see it everywhere. The entrepreneur who builds empires but can't sleep at night. The overachiever who hits every goal but feels numb, empty, disconnected. the perfectionist drowning in their own impossible standards, the leader who commands others but is secretly ruled by their own shame. All of them worshipping at the altar of the hero, believing, if I just do more, it will finally be enough. It never is, because the part that needed healing wasn't the achiever. It was the child beneath the achiever, the one who was once hurt, once abandoned, once unseen, once told, directly or indirectly, you are only lovable if you perform. This is the real work, the painful, sacred, terrifying work Jung devoted his life to teaching. Not endless self-improvement, not chasing goals until your nervous system collapses, not polishing the image of the hero until it gleams, but integration. The hero must meet the shadow, not as an enemy, not as something to defeat, but as the missing half of itself. Because what the hero doesn't realize is that the shadow holds everything the hero actually needs. The hero seeks confidence, but the shadow holds power. The hero seeks resilience, but the shadow holds the emotional depth required to withstand failure and pain. The hero seeks authenticity, but the shadow holds the vulnerability, the mess, the imperfection that makes authenticity possible. The hero seeks peace, but the shadow holds the grief that must be felt before peace can ever arrive. This is why the hero's strategy always fails in the end. Because you cannot hustle your way out of grief. You cannot discipline your way out of loneliness. You cannot goal set your way out of shame. The only way out is through the darkness you've been taught to fear, through the sadness you've been running from your whole life, through the anger you pretend isn't there, through the emptiness you tried to fill with success, perfection, validation. The integration of the hero and the shadow isn't about becoming weaker. It's about becoming whole. It's about letting the hero keep its sword, but learning that not every problem requires a battle. That sometimes the work isn't conquering. It's surrendering. It's grieving. It's resting. It's forgiving. It's about understanding that true strength isn't the absence of weakness, but the ability to hold weakness with love. When the hero meets the shadow, the relentless drive transforms into purposeful ambition. Discipline softens into devotion. Achievement stops being about proving your worth and starts being about expressing your truth. The nervous system calms. Relationships deepen. Joy becomes possible, not as a reward for productivity, but as a birthright. You no longer hustle to escape yourself. You create from who you are, not to be loved, not to be enough, but because you already are. There comes a moment, a quiet but seismic moment, where the hero finally looks in the mirror, and for the first time, truly sees the shadow staring back, not as a monster, not as the enemy, but as the forgotten half of the self. And it's in this moment, the hero realizes something terrifying and beautiful at once. All my life, I wasn't fighting the world. I was fighting myself. This realization fractures everything, every story the hero told itself. I must succeed to be worthy. I must be strong to be loved. I must never show weakness, or I'll be abandoned. All of it crumbles, because now the truth is visible, not as a concept, but as an embodied knowing pulsing through the body. The chase was never about the goal. The war was never about the outside. It was always a desperate attempt to outrun the shadow. But the shadow doesn't live out there. It lives in here, in the marrow, in the nervous system, in the places the mind doesn't like to go. This is the dark night of the hero's soul, the moment where the sword is lowered. The armor feels unbearably heavy. The grind, the striving, the endless self-optimization, all suddenly reveal themselves as cages. Not because growth is bad, not because discipline is wrong, but because the why behind it was never clean. It was never love-driven. It was fear-driven. It was shame-driven. It was survival-driven. If I just become more, do more, achieve more, maybe I'll finally outrun the part of me I'm terrified to face. But here's the paradox. The thing the hero spent its entire life trying to avoid turns out to be the key to everything it ever wanted. The shadow holds the very medicine the hero has been dying for. The hero wants peace, but the shadow holds the grief that must be felt first. The hero wants confidence, but the shadow holds the suppressed anger, the buried boundaries, the primal life force waiting to roar back into the body. The hero wants connection, but the shadow holds the vulnerability, the tenderness, the parts of self that are soft, messy, and human. The hero wants joy, But the shadow holds the sadness that's been numbed for so long, blocking joy from ever reaching the nervous system. This is the sacred reversal Jung spoke of. The moment where the hero stops striving outward and begins descending inward. It feels like death, because it is. The death of an identity. The death of the illusion that worth comes from performance. The death of the belief that if you just keep winning, the emptiness will eventually go away. It never did. It never could. Because the emptiness wasn't a flaw. It was a signal. A holy signal. Saying, stop running. Come home. But coming home isn't easy. It means feeling everything the hero was trained to suppress. The exhaustion. The grief. The disappointment. The rage at having lived a life chasing approval. The sadness of how many parts of yourself were exiled just to be good enough. And the scariest one, the grief for how much time was spent running. But here's where the deepest transformation happens. The hero realizes the shadow was never there to destroy it. The shadow was never the villain. The shadow was the exiled king, the lost queen, the sacred part of self waiting to be remembered. This is what Jung called integration. Not healing that makes you perfect, not self-improvement that makes you untouchable, but wholeness, a return to the truth that you were never supposed to be just one thing. Not just the strong, not just the competent, not just the successful, but also the soft, the uncertain, the angry, the wild, the grieving, the imperfect. When the hero embraces the shadow, the nervous system softens, the grind becomes purpose, the striving becomes expression, work becomes a form of art, not survival. Ambition stops coming from, I'm not enough, and starts flowing from, I am already whole. Relationships change, because you stop relating from, I need to prove myself to be loved, and start relating from, I am fully here as I am, and that is enough. Boundaries get sharper, not from defensiveness, but from sacred self-respect. You stop overgiving, stop people-pleasing, stop betraying yourself for scraps of approval. The hero learns that resting isn't weakness. It's power. That asking for help isn't failure. It's maturity. That saying no isn't rejection. It's self-trust. That grieving isn't losing. It's clearing space for joy, for peace, for life itself. And here's the greatest secret of all. When the hero integrates the shadow, it becomes something entirely different. It becomes the sovereign, the embodied self, no longer ruled by unconscious striving, no longer chained to proving worth, but grounded, whole, free, a person who can lead without domination, create without burnout, love without abandoning themselves, succeed without sacrificing their soul. This is not the death of the hero. It's the hero's ascension, not as the flawless warrior, but as the conscious, integrated human, one who holds both light and dark, strength and softness, discipline and surrender, and knows this is what it means to be whole. So this is where it leads, not to the top of some external mountain, not to the applause of the world, not to the illusion of flawlessness, but to the deepest, quietest truth of all, the realization that the greatest journey you will ever take is the journey from the hero to the self, from the one who fights to prove, to the one who no longer needs to. The hero once believed that life was a battlefield, that worth was something earned, that love was a reward for excellence, that if they could just do enough, achieve enough, perfect themselves enough, the gnawing emptiness would vanish. But the hero was always mistaken about one thing. The emptiness wasn't a flaw. It was an invitation to descend, to turn around, to stop running, to stop fighting, to finally face the hidden parts within that were never enemies but exiled pieces of the self. The shadow was never there to punish you. It was there to remind you of what you abandoned along the way. Your boundaries, your softness, your anger, your grief, your wildness, your truth. Everything the hero left behind in the name of being good, strong, successful, or admirable. All of it sank into the shadow, waiting patiently for the day you'd be strong enough not to conquer it, but to embrace it. This is the work Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the fragmented self, of reclaiming not just the shiny, socially acceptable pieces of who you are, but also the messy, the wild, the wounded, the sacred, the misunderstood. The parts that don't look good on resumes. The parts that don't fit into productivity hacks. The parts that can't be posted on Instagram highlight reels. The parts that are simply human. When the hero finally puts down the sword, the real magic happens. The nervous system unclenches. The heart softens. The compulsive striving dissolves. And what remains is clarity. Not the anxious clarity of what do I need to achieve next to feel worthy, but the deep, steady clarity of who am I beneath all of it? From this place, life changes. Not because the outer world becomes easier, but because the inner war ends. Work becomes an expression of your truth, not a performance for love. Rest becomes sacred, not something to be earned. Boundaries become non-negotiable, not acts of guilt. Creativity flows, not from proving, but from presence. Relationships deepen, because you are no longer showing up as a curated version of yourself, but as the whole thing. Not perfect, not polished, but real, raw, human, alive. And the world feels different, not because it changed, but because you did. You stop seeing others as threats or competitors, because you no longer need to win to feel safe. You stop projecting your shadow onto others, because you've made peace with the parts of yourself you used to deny. You stop craving external validation, because you are no longer outsourcing your sense of worth. You realize something revolutionary. You were never broken. You were simply fragmented, split between the hero you thought you needed to be, and the shadow you were taught to fear. The work was never to become someone better. It was always to become someone whole. This is the real freedom Jung spoke of. Not freedom from struggle, not freedom from challenge, but freedom from the compulsive belief that your worth is conditional. Freedom from the unconscious patterns that ruled you. Freedom from the relentless chase to outrun your own humanity. It's the freedom to show up in the world as the totality of yourself. Light and dark, strength and softness, order and chaos. Without shame, without apology, without pretense. When the hero integrates the shadow, something deeper awakens. The archetype shifts. You become the sovereign self. Not the performative king. Not the tyrant queen. Not the rigid ruler desperate for control. But the true sovereign. The one who leads from within. The one who understands that real power isn't control. It's coherence. It's alignment. It's inner peace. A power that radiates, not through force, but through presence. And from here, the hero doesn't die. It becomes the sword at your side, used when needed, set down when not. The shadow doesn't dissolve. It becomes the depth in your eyes, the gravity in your presence, the power that makes you unshakable. You are no longer trapped in the polarity of light versus dark. You are the one who holds them both. The one who no longer fears themselves. The one who no longer fights themselves. The one who finally knows, I was never meant to be perfect. I was meant to be whole. This is the work of a lifetime. Not a box to check. Not a weekend transformation. But a path. A sacred, messy, breathtaking path. Back to yourself. And the moment you begin walking it consciously, the world will never look the same again. Subscribe to the Awakened Compass and join our membership to unlock the full journey within.